Hey everyone, it's Karissa from Shining Light on Minnesota. I'm super excited. I have Luke Mickelson from Sleep and Heavenly Peace. Welcome, Luke.
Well, thanks for having me on. This is great.
Yes. Why don't you get started by telling our viewers a little bit about Sleep and Heavenly Peace and how you got started doing it?
You bet.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on. This is great.
Yes.
Sleep in Heavenly Peace is a nonprofit charity I started in 2012, and our sole purpose is to build and deliver beds for children ages 3 to 17.
Yeah.
And so, kids right now that live in the communities across the country that don't have beds, we seek out
Yes.
and deliver beds for them. So it's something that child bedlessness is something I didn't know even existed back in 2012,
Right.
but because of what we've done, we've uncovered this terrible pandemic that lives in our country that represents greater than 3% of the total population, by the way. We're trying to solve that.
How did you come across it or how did you kind of get into finding it?
Great question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a farm kid from Idaho.
Yeah.
I live in a small town, grew up in a small town, and the beauty of that, being from a small town, you get to know everybody, right?
You do. Yeah.
The
Yep.
bad side of that is you get to know everybody.
Right. I know. I'm from a small town in Minnesota, so I get it. Trust
You
me.
get it,
Yes.
right?
Everybody knows everybody and you never get away from that, right?
Exactly. And the beauty about that is
Yeah.
I think you develop this bond with people, and this sense of community and this sense of helping each other out that I don't think you get in other areas.
Right.
Well, that's the community I lived in, right? And I was coached the local football team,
Yeah.
and did all that stuff. I worked at a local water treatment company, and in my church, I served at what was in a position called Young Men's President. It's
Okay.
kind of like a youth pastor, if you
Yep.
will. I was responsible for the spiritual growth as well as the activities of the boys, which was basically Boy Scouts. I
Yeah.
was the
Yep.
leader of the leaders of the Boy
Yep.
Scouts. So one day in our meeting with the other auxiliary meeting leaders, we were talking about a family that we were helping. Right, the mom was the local school bus driver, and the dad was suffered from mental illness, didn't couldn't hold a job. They were just struggling.
Yeah.
Had a couple of kids. Well, the topic came up and they were helping them with rent and food and all that jazz. Well, it came up that they didn't have any beds for their kids. And I remember it just hit me going, wait a minute, like they got a mattress or something,
You have to
right?
have
It's like,
something.
they
Yeah.
have something, right? No, they were literally sleeping on the floor with blankets and a pillow.
Mhm.
And I don't know, it just hit me. I thought, this is happening in my own hometown.
Right.
No, that's not right. And it was kind of funny being from a small town. I don't know about you, but I had traveled on my bike as a young kid
Yeah.
everywhere in that town, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
I knew it all. Well, they actually lived in an apartment complex I didn't even know existed. And
Hmm.
so that's what first caught my ear, right? And then this situation that they were in. Well, it brought up two thoughts. My first thought was for my own kids, right? What would
Yes.
that would
Right.
be like if my own
Right.
kids are sleeping on the floor day in and day out? And then I thought and got a little excited. Those leaders that are trying to provide activities for teenage kids that doesn't involve a screen in any
Right.
sorts of a manner is hard to
Yes.
do.
Right.
And so I got excited. Here's a great opportunity that I can get an Xbox controller out of these boys' hands. Let's
Yep.
put
Let's
a
build.
drill and a sander in it. We'll
Yeah.
teach them something for crying out loud.
Right.
So I was excited. The kids came over that week, and I wasn't a stranger to tools, right? I knew how to build stuff, although I'd never built furniture before in my life. We decided that we're going to build them a bed, and so we did.
Yeah.
Now, it took a couple of nights that week, but the boys were super excited about it, which was really surprising
Very
and
cool.
exciting for me too. But then the bed was done and we went to deliver it. Well, somehow it kind of got out, right? In the church, it got out in the families.
Yep.
And lo and behold, a ton of people showed up to deliver this bed. And I was like, we can't have 20 people march into this house,
No. Right. Yeah.
So I stayed back. I didn't deliver the bed. I let the boys and their parents go. And the next day at church, they just went off about how amazing it was, right? The
Oh.
kids, a lot of hugs and kisses and cries.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I felt a little jealous that I
Absolutely. Right. Now, why didn't I get a part of this?
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
exactly. I did all this work and
Yeah.
well, the story goes, I was 35 years old. had a great job, coaching, church service, did it on paper. My life was great,
Yeah.
but internally, I don't know. I was going through something, and it had been for a couple of years. And no matter how well I pepped myself up and talked and kind of felt guilty, I was feeling this way. I had a great life. Most people would kill for it, and yet I'm not satisfied. I felt really bad about that, but it's just how I felt.
Right.
But this one service project really just livened me up. It just filled my heart, the where the hole was at, and
Yeah.
so I was excited about that. But then, life creeps back in. The service project was done, and you're back in the same rut.
Hmm.
Well, I was sitting on the couch one night, and me and my kids were watching Big Bang Theory,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And my kids were, six,
Yep.
9, 10, something like that. Anyways, the a commercial came on, and it was about some Xbox game. I don't know, I don't remember, but I remember thinking, oh, don't you dare ask for that because
Oh,
I'm not going to get it for you.
right.
All us parents, we
You
know
got to get
that's
off the screen, get outside and do something, right? Yes,
exactly. And of
absolutely.
course, they're, Dad, can we get this? And it
Ugh,
was just a perfect storm. It was
yeah,
like, I'm feeling bad about myself. I just did this project that, it's actually made it worse almost because you
right.
feel this great feeling and then you know where you're going and
I
then
need a
you
project. I need something.
it needs something, right? And
Yes.
something that's fulfilling, something that really just nourished my soul.
Yep.
And then my kids were complaining about a present that I'm not going to get them, and I just delivered a bed to a child that didn't have one.
All right.
I don't know. I right then I just got off the couch. I just stood up and started walking to the garage, and my kids are like, "Dad, where are you going?" I said, "You know what?
The light
I'm
bulb.
going to build another bunk bed and you're going to help me, right?" I wanted them to feel the joy of service, the joy
Yeah,
of giving back and stop thinking about themselves, as well as to appreciate the things they had, like a stinking bed.
absolutely right. Instead of the electronics, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Or anything, right?
Yeah.
It brought me so much joy. It brought joy to these Boy Scouts of mine. I wanted my kids to have that. And so that's what we did. We went out in the garage and we built another bunk bed. Well, I didn't know what to do with it. I mean,
Right.
it wasn't about building a bed for a child that didn't have one because the only child I knew that didn't have one, we already took care of, right?
Right.
And so I just wanted it for my kids. Well, now I got this bunk bed and I didn't know what to do with it. So it was recommended to me to put it on buy sell trade, one of those Facebook groups.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I did. And that's where child bedlessness really reared its ugly head. I started getting messages from people I knew and even people I didn't know of situations that they knew of kids that were sleeping on floors and on pallets and
Oh,
in the backseat of cars and just really incredibly uncomfortable, terrible situations in my own hometown, which we aren't in a poverty-stricken location.
right.
Twin Falls Magic Valley area is a
Yep.
pretty wealthy area, and so um, it blew me away, right? And I wanted this bed to go to a child because my kids built it, and
Yep.
if there was another child out there, I was going to take care of it. And
Absolutely.
well, a friend of mine called and said, "Listen, I've been helping a family come out of homelessness, and they got a house, and they have kids that don't have beds." And I said, "Perfect. This is what I want." And this is my Haley story.
Okay.
So Haley was a 6-year-old girl that has never slept on a bed,
Oh,
right? She'd slept in the backseat of her mom's car her whole life. They were homeless.
yeah.
Well, they just got a house. And you can imagine when we walked into this house, and I'd seen poverty before, I'd seen homelessness before, I'd
Oh,
seen
right.
foster transitioning, right? But I
Yep.
never really looked at it through the eyes of a 6-year-old,
Ugh.
right? I was
Yeah.
there, we were there for the family, but this time I was there for just the 6-year-old.
Yep.
And it blew me away. And when you walked in this house, there's nothing. There's no couch to watch cartoons on or
Right.
a table to eat cereal. There was a can of soup sitting on a hot plate in the middle of the room. That was it. That was the only thing in
Yep.
the house.
Right.
But there's this little Haley, little
Oh,
6-year-old girl, so excited.
yep.
And I said, "Haley, why don't you show me where your bedroom is?"
Yep.
She didn't know why we were there. So she walked us back into her bedroom. And you can imagine what that looked like. There's holes in the carpet and
Ugh.
tears in the wallpaper.
Yep.
But of all of that, what shocked me the most and just brought tears to my eyes was in the corner was a nest of clothes or pile of school clothes. And that's where Haley slept. She slept on her school clothes, right? And
But that was
and
great for her because she wasn't in a car anymore either.
exactly. That's why
Yeah,
she was so happy. She at least had a room.
right.
I wouldn't call it a bedroom because there was no bed in it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and so at first you're almost mad. You're almost ticked
Right.
off, right?
Well,
I was just
right.
like,
Mad at the
not in
world,
my
like this can't happen. This is my town. Right.
correct. Yeah, not
Yeah.
not on my watch,
Not in my, yep.
and then it went to joy because we were there
Yep.
with the bed and we started bringing in pieces of the bed and putting it together. And the minute Haley realized what it was, she just erupted, right? She
Oh,
just
fun.
came over and hugged
Yep.
these two strange dudes.
Beaming from
you
ear to
know
ear. Yep.
yeah, and hugged the bed. She even kissed the bed, which was
Oh,
nothing I'd ever seen before. And,
no.
and if that wasn't enough to just melt your heart,
Yeah.
I look up at mom, and I was raised by a single mom too.
Yep.
So the 6 years of tears pouring down this lady's face,
Of
I
course.
knew what those meant. I
Oh,
knew that those were sleepless nights. That's worry. That's even guilt
oh
of
yeah.
not being able to provide. I mean, I'd seen it before.
Yep.
It just melted my heart. And I
Of
knew
course.
right then and there, okay, this is way more than just a bed. This
This
is
is my
way
purpose
more.
now. Yep.
Yeah, this is,
Yep.
well, I'm a farm kid from Idaho. I mean, I
Right.
love hunting and fishing and doing all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you what, in an instant, none of that mattered anymore. It, it,
Oh,
it just no longer was a passion of mine anymore. Getting beds for kids, especially in my own hometown,
yep.
that's what I was going to do. And so that's
Amazing.
what we started doing.
Amazing. That's crazy. I mean, to think like when you see it in your own hometown and you don't know it exists, and then to go out there and actually see it taking place, and then knowing you're making a difference is it's amazing.
Well, and it piles on too. Like
Right.
the more we built and shared and delivered and posted pictures of what we're doing, the more we uncovered
Yep.
more kids and more situations, and it was just endless. It just blew
Yep.
my mind. In fact, when I tell people, certainly back then and even to this day, when I tell people what I do, I usually get two questions. And the first question is, well, there's not that many kids, right?
There
And
are.
I like, look, I understand that you would say that. I said the same thing, but it is huge. It represents greater than 3% of the total population of any
Right.
given town on average. There's kids sleeping on the floor.
Yep.
And then the second question is, well, yeah, but not in my hometown. I
It's
live in a pretty
everywhere.
wealthy part. It's a logical thought, but no, child bedlessness doesn't know economics, it doesn't know paychecks, it doesn't know circumstances, it
Right.
just knows hardship. And that can happen to anybody. And so, we wanted to do more. We wanted to grow this. Eventually we had to make it a nonprofit because I couldn't
Yeah.
finance it myself anymore.
Right. Yeah. Makes it tough
And
to do it all.
right, and the beauty of that is you realize it opens the door to realizing how many amazing people there are in this world that want to give back. They want to help. They just don't know how.
Right.
And I knew back then, look, solving child bedlessness in a country that I didn't know it even had, but
Right.
clearly does, isn't going to be solved by some farm kid from Idaho.
No.
It's going
It
to be
started
solved
there,
by,
but yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's going to be started by and solved by local communities and local members wanting to support the kids that they live next door to. And so we created a platform where people could start chapters in their own hometown. And because of that, since then,
Yep.
we now have and trained well over 430 chapter presidents in 47 states and in 4 countries. And we've delivered over 350,000 beds.
Amazing. Who have been some of your mentors along the way that have gotten you to where you are today?
Oh, great question. I served a mission for my church back when I was 19. And some of the best advice I got was from my mission president, who I didn't grow up with the dad.
Right.
All my dads were coaches and
Yep.
and he was one of them for sure. And he taught me a great lesson. He says, Luke, no matter what you do in life, no matter what career you and path you take, always look at your career and what you do as a service to others.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed that because it made my paycheck a lot more than just paycheck, right?
Right.
I looked at it as ways I was the guy that people relied on. I was the guy that when the plant went down, call Luke because he'll be there to help you. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed realizing my service meant something. And, I was able to look at that. And now, looking back, I have a saying where, if you want true joy, You got to stop looking at yourself and see
Yeah.
how you can help other people.
Yeah.
And your problems, they don't go away, of course not. But
Right.
they're gonna seem and feel far less heavy than what you think they are. And that's so true. It's so true. And so I've had a lot of mentors through the years that have taught me that same lesson. My mom being the biggest one. I mean,
Yeah.
to see a mom raise five kids on her salary and the efforts and the jobs that she went through. I mean, I remember coming home from basketball games, late at night,
Yeah.
and I get off the bus, go right to my mom's car, and we go clean offices for the next hour and a half because we needed the extra income. And
Yep.
my mom just got done with not alone a busy work day. She went to the game. She never
Yep.
missed one of my games. And
Never.
then we come home and go to work again. And then
Yep.
there was a couple of
You make
times,
it
even
happen. Yeah.
yeah, even after that, I had a bad game. I want to go shoot hoop in the gym. She had a key. We'd go there till midnight and shoot hoop. She was
Yep.
just that kind of mom. She was
Yeah.
awesome.
Amazing. So what would you tell the younger generation, that's the ones that feel entitled or the ones that don't want to get out there and work, to really help, since you've been a coach, and to really get out there and make a
Mm.
difference?
It's getting tougher. I won't lie
Mhm.
to you. It's getting tougher to express really where true joy comes. And too often, especially our youth nowadays, they don't feel that accomplishment like
Right.
we had to.
Right.
When you
The
had to
drive and the
go out and
motivation. Yeah.
oh, well, this is a great lesson I learned in Sleep and Emily Peace. We have a saying called the happiest volunteer is the sweatiest and the dustiest.
Hmm.
And really, it's the same concept. When you do hard things, when you accomplish and overcome hard situations, you get a sense of fulfillment that is greater than obviously something that you did that was simple.
Yes.
And I think too often nowadays, these video games and these phones, these instant gratification, our kids don't have to go very far or exert much energy
Right.
to feel like they've accomplished something. When in actuality, they accomplish something that's very easy. I've tried to instill in my own kids and the kids that I coached. Look, it's hard, good. You
Right.
want it to be hard
Yep.
because when you're done with it, when you're done with that hard thing and you look back and you feel the sense of accomplishment that came from doing this hard thing, the next hard thing isn't going to be as hard,
Right.
right? You know you can do it and you feel that sense of joy. And I see that in Sleep and Emily Peace every day. We take raw lumber, two by fours, two by sixes, whatever. And we take people that may have never touched a tool in their life, right?
Right.
And they're building beds. They're
Yep.
doing things that they didn't think they could do. They're doing hard things. And at the end of the build, 3 or 4 hours later, when you had a bunk of wood before and now you have 50 beds, they get to look back and see and feel the sense of accomplishment that comes from doing a hard thing like building a bed for a child.
Yep. And they know that it's going to someone in their community and they're giving
Yep,
back and all of that too. So it's not like,
100%.
hey, I'm packaging food and it might go to somebody in some other community or somebody I don't know, or who knows where it's going, anything like that too. So yeah.
This all started as a family Christmas project. This
Right.
wasn't going to be
Yeah.
some big charity. But when we decided that it needed to be a charity, we couldn't finance it ourselves. I said, listen, I'm a farm kid from Idaho. It's not that I don't like charities, but
Right.
I didn't like that exact thing. I didn't want my dollar or my effort to go to help someone I mean, sure, help someone. I wanted to help someone, but
Yes.
man, if I could choose to help someone in my own community,
Yep.
by gosh, that's what I wanted to do. And so that's how we set this up. We knew that this was going to be solved by community members looking out for their own kids.
Yep.
And then we just needed to provide a platform so they could do that.
So you can copy those processes elsewhere. Yes. Yep.
Correct. Yep. And it's been successful. We're the largest bed building charity in the world. A lot because there's not very many of them,
Right. Yeah.
but because we've empowered the local communities, we've emphasized the local communities. When you go to our website, shpbeds.org,
Hmm.
you're going to go to your local communities chapter. You're not going to go to some big national, main page. You're going to go and see what's going on locally because we want you to be involved. I know that there's kids right now that need your help in your own community. So why not, learn about what's going on locally? Why not donate and all your dollars stay locally? This is just a local problem solved by local people.
If people don't have a chapter in their own community, how can they get one started?
Ooh,
Or what
great
can I do?
question.
Yeah.
I love that question. Look, if you bring up shpbeds.org and there's not a chapter next to you, and this is something that pulls at your heartstrings, you can start your own chapter. We put on about 50 or 60 chapters every year, and we only lose one or two, and that's usually because someone moves. We make sure that you're prepared to be successful. We prep you. We then fly you down to Salt Lake to learn how to, run a nonprofit. Although we take care of most of the heavy lifting for you. But we want our chapter presidents to focus in on three things: raising money, which is actually the easiest thing that you'll
Yeah.
do. That's usually the hardest thing people think they're going to be facing. Building and then delivering beds, right? Those are the three main things we want people to focus in on. And anybody, if a farm kid from Idaho can do it that has no business running a nonprofit, if he can do it, anybody can.
Right. What do you think's next for you and for your family?
That's a great question. We still got young ones in,
Right.
so I travel quite a bit speaking and doing that, but I try to stay home as much as I can. But down the road, I mean, we're in four countries right now,
Right.
but I mean, we get hit up by all sorts of countries, I mean, that need help. We're going down to Costa Rica and gonna put something together down there, because we know if it's happening in our own hometowns, it's
It's happening
certainly
everywhere.
happening everywhere,
Yeah.
right? And getting that established is a dream of mine now. And we have a platform that is successful. It would be egregious if we didn't continue to try to promote that and
Right.
and implement that in other areas.
Third world countries everywhere else
Oh
too.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. But it's a difficult thing. They
It
don't have the
is.
same resources that we have. And
Right.
we know that we still today, if you look at our national numbers, there's still 160,000 kids on our waiting list right now. That's just our waiting list. And
Yeah.
that's just the kids that know about Sleep in Heavenly Peace,
Right.
which right now we only cover about 27% of the entire United States. So we've got still hometown stuff. We still got a long ways to go, but we're working hard at it.
How do you stay intentional when you're doing all this with the family? I mean, everybody always talks about the whole fun work-life balance, and there's not a work-life balance because I mean, I even know when I'm in front of thousands of people every day, everybody's like, "Are you going to slow down?" I'm like, "The flow is there, and you've
What does
got
that
you've got
mean?
your passion. There's the family does it with you, right? You just go when
Yeah.
it's good and you do it. You make it happen."
Yeah, we train our chapter presidents because we've been through it.
Yeah.
You still have to live a balanced life. You still
Yeah.
got kids' games to go to, and
Yep.
baptisms and
All that fun
whatever.
stuff.
You
Yes.
still have a life to live because this is pretty addicting. It's really
Right.
hard when companies find out what you're doing in your hometown. They throw money at you. They want to
Yep.
help. They want to be involved. It's hard to say no to a $10,000 donation and
Yeah.
build 50 beds. It's
Yep.
hard. And
And it's hard when
but
you see the kids too that you're
oh,
making a difference, right?
I tell chapter presidents the hardest part of being a chapter president, hmm, is laying in your own bed, looking up or looking up these applications and reading these situations that these kids, right then, as you're
Right.
laying comfortably in your bed on your pillow, they're sleeping in these situations, these
Right.
these pallets and air mattresses that are deflating, or three or four kids to one bed.
Yep.
It's hard. It's hard not to feel guilty about
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. So you have your own kids. Are they getting involved more? Are they going to be doing it next?
God bless them.
Right. They
They've
all
been
want to do
around.
their own thing, I'm
Oh,
sure.
they've been
Yes.
around more than any other kids, and of course they still help once in a while. But they've helped build and delivered hundreds and hundreds of beds, if not thousands of beds, and
Right.
they're in that stage, the 20 to 23-year-old stage, where
Yep.
I still have one 14-year-old, but they're in college classes and
Yep.
trying to figure themselves out. So I think everybody has a season of life where they can do more
Really.
for others, and
Yep.
sometimes that season of life just you got to focus in on what you're doing now. But I'm certainly glad that I feel like they've learned the joys of service.
Right.
They're excited to feel like they have a history and a part of the history of Sleep in Heavenly Peace, and they get to share that and excited to
Yep.
share that with others. Some of the best blessings that I get out of Sleep in Heavenly Peace now is going to these chapters and seeing these teenage kids there helping out and being
Right.
involved. And you just don't see that nowadays. And
No,
and
you
as a
don't.
coach, that's we coach a sport, sure,
Yes.
but I also look at it as we raise young men to be men,
Yes.
and how that's important in the day and age now, and how they need to raise their kids. It's all lessons that you've learned, and mentors, like you mentioned, that teach you things. And I just hope that what I've done and what these other, hundreds of thousands of volunteers have done for their own families teach them the joys of service and giving back.
Right. I think it's important. I mean, I know I have a blended family of 7 kids, but they get out there and they do the same thing. I mean, it's always giving back. How can I get in the community and help out and
Right.
volunteer and do
Exactly.
service things too? I mean, that's more important than anything, I think.
100%.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we love having you on. Is there anything that you would tell our guests, leaving, or what would be the next step, and what would you tell the guests?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. If there's one thing that I would ask your audience to do,
Yeah.
is just help me raise awareness. Child bedlessness. Don't feel bad that you may have never heard this before. I didn't,
Right.
and most people don't. That it's really this bad, and it's in your own hometown. In fact, one of our chapter presidents from Burnsville, Minnesota,
Yeah.
right? He talked about how he actually came across this because he built a bed for his daughter, and he wanted to build a bed for just like me, a member of his community. He looked online for plans, and he ran into us. Well, now he's a chapter president. In fact, his first year, he says, "Well, I think I'll build 4 or 5 beds," and I just laughed at him because I knew 4 or 5 was going to be 4 or 500 beds, and
Right.
and that's what they build every year now. And he found out in his own church congregation that there was kids sleeping on the floor. He didn't know that that was even happening. And so it's right next door. Help us raise awareness and help, your agencies like CASA,
Mhm.
foster care, child support services, protective
Yeah.
services rather. They will tell you beds for kids is one of the hardest things for them to find and acquire.
Yeah.
So when they realize that there's this organization called Sleep in Heavenly Peace out there that provides a solution to this problem, they're ecstatic, and you can be a part of that solution by just sharing this podcast. Share it with your
Yeah.
friends. Tell people about child bedlessness. Help us raise that awareness.
Last question before I go. What is your favorite quote that's out there?
Oh, it comes from my favorite sitcom of all time, Ted Lasso. If
Yeah.
you know Ted Lasso,
Yes,
he's great.
absolutely.
And he's got some real good ones in there, but probably my favorite is, be curious, not judgmental. And that carries so many lessons in so many situations. We go into these homes, especially in Sleep and Emily Peace, where, I remember I took my brother-in-law in this house, and they had a bigger a television screen or television than he did. And I remember he walked away feeling pretty upset about that. He's like, "Man, I just delivered a bed to this family, and they have a TV that's bigger than mine." And I said, "You know what? You're right. That TV was probably given to him."
Mm-hmm.
And so you just never know.
Right.
And Ted Lasso said it the best. Ask questions, be curious, not judgmental. And when you start asking questions, you start realizing some of the circumstances of what that family's gone through, and excuse me, and maybe how you can be involved to help them further down the road. And I promise everybody out there, when you take time to help someone else out, you're going to help them, right? They're going to feel that. But I promise you, you're going to help yourself probably more than you realize.
And how can they find you? Where can they find you at?
shpbeds.org. That's
Mhm.
where you can find and learn about the mission. You can, of course, find me on social media all over the place.
Yeah.
It's either Luke Mickelson or SHP Luke. I'm on Instagram. Follow me. I share content every day, helping people see the doom and gloom of child bedlessness, but also the great impact and joy that comes from serving others. Look me up, send me an email, whatever. I've got a book coming out later on this year called More Than Just a Bed. It talks about the history of SHP. It gives some hopefully inspirational stories to inspire people to do more, get off the couch, and really make a difference in your life and in the lives of others.
Amazing. Well, we all hope we can help out any way we can. We'll definitely be sharing the podcast and it'll be out later this week, actually.
Awesome.
So the sooner the better. And I really appreciate you being on today, Luke. Keep
Thanks for
shining
having
light
me.
and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. See you later.